Greetings, Wizards! Welcome to the first ever Gummy Bear Quidditch match. Today will be a tough game between the highly competitive houses, red gummies and orange gummies and yellow gummies. The ultimate showdown between these three houses will determine which seeker will fly the farthest and whether color actually affects the distance a seeker gummy bear can fly. First spell we'll see today is a perspective study. In order to construct our amazing wands and brooms for our gummy bear competitors, we're going to need popsicle sticks, rubber bands, pencils, ramps, identical textbooks, and a tape measure. Pranay will launch the gummy bears, JP will record the video, Rihanna will record the data, and Rhea will measure.
But before we start our match, we need to take preventive action against errors that could alter the results. It is necessary to describe the launch protocol to standardize it so we can ensure that each gummy bear is given an equal chance to win the match, otherwise some gummy bears may be given an accidental advantage in terms of distance. Some dementors that we have to face before we get into the match include removing any lurking or external variables. Some possible errors include making sure we measured the gummy bear's landing position correctly after the gummy bear landed fully on the ground. In order to ensure that we are measuring each gummy bear fairly, we marked the end of the ramp with a piece of tape to indicate the 0 mark so that accidentally shifting the ramp would not affect the measurement of the distance of the gummy bears. Additionally, we made sure the launcher, ramp, and pencil didn't shift during our treatments by taping them to the ramp and ground. Also, to avoid having people of different strengths launch the gummy bears at different angles and pressures, we had the same person launch each gummy bear. Before we start the match, we invite the opinions of our Wizarding World forecaster. The reason we tested our variables together is because it is a common misconception that when testing multiple factors, it is better to test them individually. However, running more than one factor is more efficient and provides more information.
Greetings, Wizards! After careful observation of our fierce competitors, I have done some divination and have several predictions for the results. The color of a gummy bear, which all come from the same brand and package, does not affect its mass, design, or shape. This means that the color of the gummy bear would have no effect on the speed at which the gummy bear flies or the time it is in the air, resulting in no effect on the distance traveled. Launching a gummy bear from the bottom of the ramp would yield the best results, as it is closest to the 0 mark, which for our angles more than makes up for the flight time lost by lowering the starting position. By the same logic, launching a gummy bear from the top of the ramp would impact the distance negatively as it is farther back. The launching angle, which is influenced by the amount of textbooks under the launcher, plays a role in the distance traveled by the gummy bear. We expect distance to increase with the steepness of the angle. The reasoning behind this is that as the launch angle approaches 45 degrees, it will travel farther, because this degree measure maximizes the flight time at a horizontal velocity, and therefore the distance.
Before starting the match, we needed to randomly select competitors in order to randomize the experiment and eliminate the possibility of lurking variables to make the experiment as accurate as possible. We randomized the experiment through blocking, which is defined to be gathering groups of units that are similar to isolate the variability due to the differences between the blocks. This is the best method because we wanted to test how color combined with launch locations affected the distance, and other methods, like complete randomization and match pairs, wouldn't be as useful as they overlook the characteristics we intend to measure. The only significant disadvantage that was faced with blocking was that analysis was complicated and the subject would more likely be undergoing a procedure. However, it is more precise. Some pros of using a match pair, which is when 2 treatments are assigned to blocks of subject, is that it reduces variation. It also ensures that the same subject being repeated doesn't happen. However, the statistical analysis is less complicated and requires a data set to be similar, as well as decreases randomization. Because of these cons, we decided against matching pairs. Complete randomization, or when treatments are assigned at random, is good because it's simple and truly random. However, it fails to take in other external influencers and may result in confounding. We hope to highlight the differences between the colors, so we randomize which 3 gummy bears colors to use with the function randint_no_rep_3_5. After selecting 3 colors, we had to randomize which gummy bear to use for each color with randint_no_rep_3 x number of gummy bears for color Y. In terms of controlling our game, to make the treatment as similar as possible, we launched the gummy bears from the same hallway, same launcher, using the same textbooks and ruler, and the same ramp. Our control group was the middle because this is the location being used for all the other variables we tested, such as the effective angle measurement. Additionally, we have used replication when we applied each treatment, including angle measurement changes and changing location on the ramp to each group of colored gummy bears, thus allowing us to test the variability of the characters we wish to test.
Now it's time to start the match. To begin, we propped up our ramp with 3 textbooks and measured how far the gummy bear traveled horizontally from the ramp at 3 height levels: the top of the ramp, the middle of the ramp, our control, and the bottom of the ramp. The randomization technique was the same as mentioned earlier. Some background information includes that the experimental units are the gummy bears, the two factors are launch location and color, and the colors are red, orange, and yellow. There are 9 treatments in total due to the two factors, with 3 treatments for each color. The response variable is the distance traveled by the gummy bear. The replication was using multiple subjects for the treatments, and we controlled by using the same launcher, hallway, and launch angle for each trial. Looks like this was a tough match. The gummy bears who flew from the bottom of the ramp flew far and won the Quidditch match. Time to review the results. First, let's discuss the shape. The graph is unimodal and skewed to the right. This means that the bears launched from the top had a shorter distance than those launched from the bottom of the ramp. Let's take a look at the center. On average, from the bottom of the ramp, the overall mean was 70.56 centimeters. The orange bear's mean was 72.66 centimeters, the red bears traveled a mean of 72.33 centimeters, and the yellow bear's mean was 66.66 centimeters. The gummies launched from the middle of the ramp had an overall mean of 40.33 centimeters. The mean for orange was 47.33 centimeters, the red mean was 25.33 centimeters, and the yellow mean was 48.33 centimeters. Gummy bears launched from the top of the ramp had an overall mean of 41.17 centimeters. The overall mean was 54 centimeters, the red mean was 40.66 centimeters, and finally the yellow mean was 28.83 centimeters. The mean was the highest for the bottom of the ramp for every color. The highest color varied between launch location, implying color doesn't affect distance, at least to a significant degree.
The next game is starting, Wingardium Leviosa. We tested the launch angle, which changed with the number of books. The control group was 3 books because we used that for every other variable that we tested. The levels we used were 1, 3, and 5 books and 3 colors. The treatments were the combinations of these angles and the colors. For 1 book, the angle is 2.75 degrees. For 3 books, it was 8.08 degrees, and for 5, it was 13.25 degrees. The angles affected the distance as we saw through the various trials that we conducted, because as the angles increased, the distance did as well. However, the colors don't affect the distance at all. For each color, there is no noteworthy disparity between the distances traveled, other than what's a source of error. So let's discuss the shape. The graph is unimodal and skewed to the left. This means that as the ramp angle increases, the distance does as well. Discussing the center, the mean for the 1 book was overall negative 8.5 centimeters, but for orange it was negative 8, red negative 12.66, and yellow negative 4.83. 3 books was 30.56 centimeters, orange was 30.66, red was 36.66, and yellow was 24.33. And for 5s, the overall mean was 57.89, orange was 59.66, red was 60.66, and yellow was 53.33 centimeters. Clearly, the highest mean is for 5 books for all the colors, but the highest color varied, meaning the color is random and not significant to the distance. Discussing the spread, the standard deviation was orange for 19.08, red was 6.03, and yellow was 10.25. So to summarize, as the angle increased, the distance did as well, but color didn't have an effect. The final game is about to begin. We also tested the orientation with the gummies on their back, sides, and front. The 2 factors were orientation and color, and the levels were 3 levels of orientation and 3 levels for color. The treatments were the different combinations of these 2 factors. Despite the fact that the average distances traveled was somewhat different than the orientations, this can be attributed to statistical error. The orientations didn't actually affect it because the graphs showed that it's random and has no pattern. For color, the highest color also always varies within the different levels, and it can be assumed that color is insignificant as well. Let's look at the table. So at the table, you can see the different random values, but it's easier to see through the graph. In the graph, let's discuss the shape. The graph's uniform, there are no clear modes. One of the orientation is not clearly more effective, and therefore, it's assumed that the orientation does not affect the distance. Furthermore, looking at the center, the overall means are not drastically different. On average, the gummy bears launched on their backs traveled 16.44 centimeters, and the means for the orange bear on the back was 19.66, for the red 13.66, and the yellow 16 centimeters. The gummies launched on their sides had an overall mean of 20.44 centimeters, with the orange having a 15 centimeter mean, red 25, and yellow 30 centimeters. Finally, the bears launched face up traveled 19.11 centimeters on average. The mean was 23.66 for orange, 21.66 centimeters for red, and 12 centimeters for yellow. Discussing the spread, the standard deviation for orange was 4.93, standard deviation for yellow was 8.144, and standard deviation for red was 10.15 centimeters. Looking at these graphs, it looks like the way that they stand on their broomsticks doesn't affect how far they fly, and neither does their color. Even in the wizarding world, nothing's perfect. The sources of error include the person launching the gummy bear using a different amount of force each time. We minimize this by keeping the launcher person as Pranay, but there's bound to be some inconsistency. Also, the gummy bears may have been made differently, affecting the mass and therefore the distance traveled. We solved this by randomizing it, but again, there would be inconsistency. Also, wizards even make mistakes, so the person measuring the distance would have made some mistakes or had the potential to. If the pencil moved between trials, the gummy bears would be launching from varied angles and therefore the distance would be affected. We prevented this by taping the pencils down, but again, this would be inconsistent slightly. And if the ramp itself moved between trials, even though we taped it down, this would cause some inconsistencies as well. First colors don't affect their flight. The launch angle and location affect the distance, and the bottom of the ramp in 5 books increase the distance. We finally gained enough data to answer everyone's burning question, does the color matter? And we learned that the answer is no. The data suggests that there's no correlation between the color and the distance, and the data between the colors in the same treatment are relatively similar. Any disparity could be attributed to the error stated earlier, and the patterns are random. The errors could be different pressures applied to the launcher that could have significantly influenced the data captured. If you find any seeker that you think should be recruited, please don't be afraid to leave a note for Dumbledore.